Good. Okay. I understand that it is 6 o'clock, so I would like to call us to order. In accordance with South Carolina Code of Laws, 1985, Section 30-4-80-E, the following have been notified of the time, place, and agenda of this meeting: the Herald, the Charlotte Observer, CN2, and WRHI. If I could ask you all please to join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. We'll now stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Board members, you have all received a copy of the agenda. Were there any adjustments or corrections?
No.
If not, that will stand with unanimous consent. Our next item, we do have two sets of minutes from the September 7th and the September 21st meeting that you've had a chance to review. Were there any adjustments to the September 7th meeting?
No.
Those will stand as confirmed. And then September 21st? All right, also approved by unanimous consent. We do have public participation. I see a lot of familiar faces and names on the cards, but I will go through the routine again. We have a 15-minute segment. Just so happens I have 15 cards, so everybody will have a minute to address the board. I see from the topics that there's a lot of masks and COVID and health and safety discussion. Obviously, a lot of opinions, a lot of emotions. I'm just going to ask that everybody remain respectful. We listen to our speaker for their allotted time without interrupting, and hear everybody out for the next 15 minutes. I have them in an order they were handed to me. I don't know how they were collected. But the first one up, if you'll come up, say your name, state your name and your address, and then your time will begin. We'll start with Joanne Walker.
How many people?
15? Yes, 15. I'm sorry if I didn't say that.
You did.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. Oh.
Hi, everyone. I'm Joanne Walker. You have my address on the card. I'm a resident of Fort Mill. I have 3 kids in the school system. I just want to say how disappointed I am. For the last 2 months, you've been saying that the proviso kept you from mandating masks, and you intimated that your hands were tied and you would have mandated them without it. Well, it's been over a week now since your hands have been untied, and we still have no mandate. Here we are. The numbers may be better today than they were a month ago, but they're still really bad. A temporary mask mandate for the populations ineligible for vaccinations, such as elementary, middle school students with disabilities, is not a bridge too far. It's necessary. Please reassess when vaccines are available for all. Follow the guidelines that have been put forward by SCDHEC for K through 12, and please do the right thing. I really appreciate that most of you are wearing masks, and which tells me that you believe in the science, most of you. I also want to say, I know that there's a whole, we don't co-parent with the government, but my kids are in public school. I'm happy to co-parent with y'all. Please help us make the right decisions. Thank you.
Our next card is Sarah Myers.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. Per the DHEC K-12 guidance, in order for masking to be optional or lifted, 3 categories must be satisfactorily met. There has not been an outbreak in class in the school prior for 2 weeks. An outbreak equals 3 cases in a classroom within 2 weeks. Number 2, the vaccination rate among students and staff combined is greater than 75%. Ours in York County is currently 47.4%. The county is not in substantial or high transmission as reported by the CDC as the third satisfactory category to be met. Unfortunately, our county transmission is considered high at anything greater than 200 per 100,000. York County today is at 686, and that's considered high. As a parent, we trust you to make policy reflective of DHEC guidance, and you cannot merely cherry pick for convenience. Nor should you enact policy against said DHEC recommendations and guidelines. By doing so, you create an environment inaccessible by those most vulnerable and hostile to those who are merely accessing their right to free and public education. Thank you for having me.
Jen Callahan.
Hi there. Thank you. So thank you, Dr. Epps and school board members. Got the district email this morning. I have to tell you, we see you. You told us you couldn't enforce a mask mandate because of the proviso we'd lose funding. Now it's overruled, still refusing to mandate masks. We see you. When DHEC and CDC guidelines are inconsistently applied and close contact notices are often sent too late for effective testing or quarantining, calling into question the data integrity of the COVID dashboard, we see you. When you enforce misogynistic dress codes against female students but consider enforcing a mask mandate burdensome, we see you. We have to rely on FOIA requests of transparency into the decision-making of the school board. Executive sessions held behind closed doors, we see you. When hurricanes roll by and you justifiably cancel school safety for the safety of our kids but refuse to put in place basic health care mandates to keep them safe during a pandemic, we see you. When you submit to the noisiest and least informed, we see you. As school employees are sacrificed to the altar of your misplaced priorities, we see you. We'll vote you out and we'll hold you accountable. Thank you.
Stacy Kobe.
There you go. And there's also a statement from a mom who couldn't make it because her child caught COVID at school. My name is Stacy Kobe. My child is a student at Springfield Elementary. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, it is time to change your slogan. You are not putting children first. The evidence is clear that masks reduce COVID cases, isolations, and quarantines. Masks are recommended by the top scientists and doctors at the CDC, the American Academy of Pediatrics, and South Carolina Department of Health, period. Not just if your numbers are low, but period. Until now, you've used the South Carolina legislator as your scapegoat and the proviso as your excuse for why you cannot do everything in your power to protect our students. We now see that your true reason was that mask mandates are burdensome on principals, teachers, and staff. In other words, it's too much of a hassle to keep our children safe and ensure they have equal access to their education. You're disregarding the impact and danger the lack of a mandate is putting on students and their families. The true impact of COVID is hidden by incomplete information reporting on your COVID dashboard and is necessary information for school administrators, teachers, and parents to make informed decisions. The reported COVID numbers may have gone down 75% since the beginning of the school year, but does that really imply that you should not make every protective measure possible? Thank you.
Kimberly Yard.
Hey, my name is Kimberly Yard. I have 3 children at 3 different schools in the district, and my address is on the card. You obviously know where I stand on the mask issue. I talked to you last time. Today I'm going to talk about the lack of consistency and policy among educating quarantined students. My daughter was just quarantined last week. We have a policy on who must quarantine, but how to educate these students is varying by school, grade, or even teacher. Some students are able to fishbowl with their class. Some get Google Classroom assignments, and some get nothing to do, like my daughter, who needs structure. For a district that values being the best in the state in education, this is failing our students and can lead to learning gaps and ultimately lower test scores. We need a policy to ensure that no child is left behind and they all learn the skills that they need, regardless of how long they are in the classroom. Also, I want to point out that there would be less quarantined students if we had a mask mandate. The numbers from other schools who have mandates show this to us. Thank you.
Jody Griezmann.
I'm Jody Griezmann with Moms for Liberty. Last week, my child was quarantined from school. Her reaction to the news? Well, that's stupid. I'm not sick. My thoughts, exactly. When will this madness end? Quarantining healthy children. Since 3rd grade, my child has had an IEP, which does not include virtual learning. I've advocated for her since she was a baby and did so last week while she worked hard from home. We worked as a family from home. One of her 4 teachers was stellar, used Fishbowl, Google Meets, checked up to make sure she was on par. 1 out of 4. My healthy child was denied in-person school for 1 week due to the senseless policy that the district is mandating without supporting data. She didn't sit home, though. She lived her life. I let her work, spend time with her friends. She went to the DMV yesterday and got her learner's permit. And after her negative COVID test on Sunday, she couldn't return until today, Tuesday. Explain the logic in that. Again, this is all about fear and control. Give parents a choice to decide.
Sarah Steinbacher.
Hi, my name is Dr. Sarah Steinbacher. First, you said in your safe return plan that you could not comply with the CDC's mask recommendations because of the proviso. Then you said you couldn't issue a mask mandate because of funding. Now that there's a federal injunction on the proviso, you have changed your rationale once again. Today, you're saying that the dashboard numbers are your guide. But as I shared at the last meeting, and as the FOIA data showed, Fort Mill dashboard numbers are incomplete and misleading. Whereas all the surrounding districts report the number of children and staff in isolation, Fort Mill's dashboard does not include isolation cases or closed classrooms. There were 992 students in isolation cases not reported through September 23rd. That's 5% of the student body. The dashboard must be updated with greater transparency if the district plans to use it as a threshold for determining mask mandate implementation. Your other new rationale is that mask mandate is too burdensome for teachers to enforce. If that's the case, you need to repeal the dress code immediately, because asking children to wear a cloth over their face is certainly easier than measuring shorts or shoulder straps. Also, coordinating dual modality learning is very burdensome, so I would think a mask mandate that has been proven to reduce the frequency of quarantines would ease teachers' burdens quite a lot. Finally, Fort Mill has not addressed how they will comply with Judge Lewis's ruling as it relates to not discriminating against children with disabilities by providing a safe and educational environment with reasonable accommodations. Thank you.
Molly Harms.
Hi, Molly Harms. My address is on the card there, and I have 3 children in the Fort Mill School District. I bought this shirt for myself back when I had COVID in 2020. It says faith over fear, if you can't see it. At the time, I didn't know anyone else who had COVID except my husband, who became ill 2 days before me. Even though I was fairly young and mostly in shape, all of the horrible worst-case scenario news reports kept replaying over and over again in my mind. At one point, I even told my husband that I was struggling to breathe. And thankfully, my rational and amazing husband reminded me that I say the same thing anytime anxiety tries to take over. Once I stepped away from social and news media, I realized that I could breathe just fine, and he was right. The media thrives on drama. Faith is taking the first step even when you don't see the whole staircase. Martin Luther King Jr. said that. The email from Fort Mill this morning was a step up that staircase, so thank you for that. We all need to start putting more faith and less fear in our decisions. There's been a 77% decline in positive cases since September 3rd with mask option in place. Thank you.
I believe it says Lauren Lewis.
Thank you for your time. My address is on the card. I'm a resident of Fort Mill. My name is Lauren Lewis. I'm a resident of Fort Mill. My daughter attends Fort Mill Elementary. Love this community. Fort Mill Elementary School is awesome. My daughter's teacher is the best teacher we've ever had. I couldn't be happier to be here. If we've learned anything these past few years, it's this: common sense is not so common. Judges, presidents, public officials will bend the rules however they wish to take our freedoms. When a federal judge tries to shame me and call me a bigot because my daughter doesn't wear a mask, you have to ask yourself, how do I teleport out of clown world? I realize that this board is in a difficult spot. You have some people proclaiming that we're all going to die if we don't wear masks, we don't get vaccinated. On the other hand, you have parents like me who simply want to choose a choice to do what we do with our bodies, and we haven't abandoned what this country used to believe: land of the free, home of the brave. I leave this board with one warning: don't become petty tyrants. I get it, wear a mask, take your shot, take our freedoms. But there are some of us here that still believe in freedom. I'll leave you with this last quote: I prefer dangerous freedom over peaceful slavery. Thomas Jefferson. Thank you.
Catherine Noto.
Good evening, everybody. My address is on the card. I stand before you not only as a citizen and a special needs parent of children in the Fort Mill School District, but an honored member of Moms for Liberty, a certified family partner specialist, and the president of a local nonprofit organization for families raising children with severe trauma and mental health issues stemming from abuse and neglect. In this role, I speak for those that don't often speak for themselves. The children like mine that suffered years of abuse and trauma, which had a hand cover their faces, their noses, and mouths to quiet their screams or their cries. I speak for all who work in education that have their own stories of trauma they might not feel comfortable sharing, but like so many children, the mask is a trigger to the trauma's past. I speak for children that have yet to be saved from their trauma, those none of us even know about yet, if ever. I speak for children that need to learn social cues and facial expressions. I speak for the children who 2 eyes and a mask might actually terrify. This threat held over children that any day they might not be able to come to school even if they are completely healthy. The looming threat that they will have once again forced into masking even though it terrifies them. It is time to take masks and quarantining off the table. It is time to stop discriminating against children and families for their choices. It is time to remember that children have a right to a public education in the least restrictive environment. I speak for those never able to speak for themselves. This is not politics, it's humanity.
Dr. Shaw, I won't get their first name right, I'm sorry.
My name is Birju Shah, and I'm a father of 3 and one of the many local physicians who cares for patients afflicted by COVID-19. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to the board today, as I did a few weeks back regarding the overwhelmed state of local hospitals due to COVID-19. Very little has changed in this regard, and though in line with the email sent out by the board earlier today, daily infection rates are decreasing. However, this pandemic is far from over. In York County alone, there's an 11.8% positive rate, and the number of deaths from COVID have risen by 2.9% since last week. The email sent earlier today recognizes that face coverings at school remain a recommendation of DHEC and the CDC, and also that the number of students missing school due to required quarantining could be significantly reduced if students were to consistently wear masks. These statements are at odds with the school board's decision to not implement a mask mandate. Rather than thresholds for when a mask mandate should be implemented, I request that you set a threshold for when a mask mandate is no longer needed, guided by local public health and epidemiologic data. The truthfully small, albeit very vocal opponents of a mask mandate reference that threat to freedom. We cannot forget that every freedom comes with great sacrifice. We as a society have prioritized the freedom to not wear masks over other freedoms, such as visiting our grandparents at nursing facilities and being at a family member's side when they die in the hospitals. The question is if we can be disciplined enough to act in the community's best interests over ourselves.
Thank you. Greg Wigington?
Good evening. Hello. Hey, my name is Greg Wigington. I live in Fort Mill. Address is on the card. I'm with Moms for Liberty, and my time has started. Okay, with almost 18,000 students and only 79 positive cases, or 0.4% positive rate, it's nice to see that data and common sense were used in the recent decision, plus my kids were ecstatic. There was a part of the announcement which did give me pause, however. It said that a mask could be required if there's a continued 2-week trend of rising case numbers. My children's school currently has 1 positive COVID case. If that turns to 3 in 2 weeks, are there masks? If the district jumps from 79 to 110, which would make it 0.6% positive rate, will they be forced to wear masks? These numbers are arbitrary, but the guidance appears to be as well. There should be no mandates. The issue is about numbers, but it's also about parents maintaining the right to do what they think is best for their child. Thank you for your time, and thank you for supporting parental choice on mask mandates.
Kate Colosi?
Kate Colosi, I have 2 kids at Dobie's Bridge. I'm going to do something a little bit off the cuff, so I hope that you would just honor that. I want to pray over you all. God, I just come before you, and I want to pray over this board as I have hard decisions, God. This is not a job meant for the weak, God, but you have them here at this point in time for a reason and for a purpose. I pray for wisdom, wisdom to make decisions, not based off of their own understanding, but on your understanding, God. I pray for fear that is driven in all of this, that you would break fear, that fear and their fear would not project their own fear onto the decisions that they make for our kids, God. I pray for the protection over every single one of the schools in this district, for their kids, for their parents, for the staff, for their families, God. I pray that COVID would be on its way out and that no one would have to suffer over this. And God, I pray that you acknowledge the fact that you entrusted us parents with our children to make decisions for our kids. And I pray that you would continue to uphold that throughout the remainder of this school year. Thank you so much.
John Watson.
Hello, my name is John Watson. I live in Fort Mill. I have a son in Dobie's Bridge and another in daycare. My address is on the card. I'm not a public speaker and I'm not an activist, and I cannot believe I am here. Very nervous to talk in front of all of you. I've been watching this and I keep waiting to see our school district take what I feel like would be a step to protect our children. I keep waiting for it to happen. And when my son came home with a close contact and infected our entire family and put one of us in the ER with pneumonia, I waited for you to do something. And you've failed us time and time again. And my family is going to get out of this. But just because most of us will get out of this fine doesn't mean that some won't. And I cannot believe that I am still here waiting for you to make the right decision. Please show some leadership and make the unpopular decision. Protect the people who need it the most. Thank you.
Last card is Leah Holcomb.
Hi, I'm Leah Holcomb, and I'm speaking on behalf of Moms for Liberty. My daughter has had COVID, which according to the recent studies in Israel gave her a 6.7-fold higher immunity than a vaccine provides, far beyond 90 days. My teacher friend, we'll call her Sue, is vaccinated, as is her husband and her son. We'll call her son Caden. Sue's vaccinated husband got COVID. Their son Caden kept going to school, even with COVID in their household. According to the policy, that's acceptable. Next, Sue got COVID from her vaccinated husband. Vaccinated Caden kept going to school with 2 household members spreading COVID between the vaccinated. That week, my daughter got a close contact. She has a 6.7-fold stronger immunity to COVID than vaccinated Caden. She was required to quarantine although she was healthy, and her whole household was healthy. Caden had a COVID outbreak spreading in his household, but was allowed to continue to attend school. My daughter never got COVID, but her grades and academic experience suffered due to the policy based on outdated hypotheses, which have been proven wrong. Tonight, I ask you to amend this non-scientific discrimination and segregation in the policy. Children are not to be used as political pawns. It is completely unethical, unscientific, harmful, and completely unacceptable. Quarantining healthy children must stop now.
Thank you all. Our next order of business are some staff reports, starting with a monthly financial update from Ms. Lordo.
Thank you. Good evening. Tonight in your packet, we have provided the monthly financials for August 31st. This is the first month that we are running what we call our full payroll, which includes our teacher pay. So you should expect to see a large increase in our monthly expenditures, closer to 1/12 of our budgeted amount. Total revenues through August 31st were $14,575,785. Total expenditures were $19,146,741. So we were at a negative cash flow, which we would expect this time of year, of $4,570,000, meaning we were using our fund balance to date. You will now see, though, that the full board-approved budget, the $177 million, is now loaded into all of the general ledger as of August 31st. Impact fees, total collected, or any questions about the monthly financial before we move on, I should ask. Questions? Okay,
Yeah.
sure.
Could you clarify the interest on the investments?
Sure. So as you know, the market has been rather volatile due to the economy over the last probably 12, 18 to 24 months. Most of our funds are long-term invested in the local government investment pool through the state treasurer's office. I did go back because I thought that question may come up, and I looked at the rates, and just to give you an example, starting last July, so July of 2020, the interest rate at the pool was 0.5006%, and it continued to decline over the next 12 months, and it is currently, or as of August 31st, it was at 0.1. So it went from 0.5 to 0.1. So that somewhat explains to me what we're seeing year to date with interest rate decline. And we did make that adjustment just for the benefit of the public. You made that adjustment in the approved budget. We did not budget as much in interest earnings for this year to account for that uncertainty with what we were seeing in the general market.
Got it. Thank you. One more question. This
Sure.
is the intergovernmental revenue. Can you elaborate
Yes.
on that there to the public about the intergovernmental
Sure.
revenue?
So you can see that it's comparable for the period 2 months into the fiscal year for this year compared to last August 31st. That is a monthly transfer for the teacher salary and fringe supplement. It actually comes to us through EIA dollars, which is a separate state account, and they allow us to transfer in 1/12 each month into the general fund to supplement teacher salary and fringe, is what that is.
Yep, got it.
It's not super clear, I understand that.
No, I got you.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. And last question
Okay.
here. This is regarding what I saw, a fluctuation, so excuse my stupidity, but this is maybe a teachable moment for me. But I see a fluctuation in the supplies and materials. Can you help me understand?
Sure. So supplies and materials, I don't necessarily look at that between schools or even between years, because each school is allocated a school budget, and some of them may spend more of their budget in July and August getting ready for the new year. I think some are a little more conservative and may spend throughout the year more, or even throughout the first semester more evenly than other schools. So it really just depends on how that school administration manages their school budget.
Understood.
So I expect to see fluctuations in that as well.
Gotcha. Thank you.
But Leanne,
But that's a good
at the end
question.
of the year, I assume you make sure that it's all.
Absolutely.
There's any impacts that will allow you to overspend, and I doubt any
Correct.
principals leaving
Yes.
money on the table.
They don't leave money on the table. Some are very careful. They worry about running out of money. And if they go out and spend it all now, I'm not going to question that, but that's all they get, basically.
Thank you, Leanne.
So we do have that discussion, yes.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, so moving on with impact fees, total collected to date is $42,639,000. We've collected on single-family units of 1,704 and multifamily 969 for a total of 2,673 units. September had more apartments come on board, which was somewhat of a shift. We had 23 multifamily units come on board in September. Recently, we had 10 homes. I believe at the last meeting, you asked, Mr. Bolden, you asked about comparable year to year. So I went back and pulled a year of rolling data for single family. So I looked at September 2020 to September 21 compared to September 2019 to September 2020. So we had the most current 12 months, we collected on 498 single-family homes, which was a little over $9 million. A year ago, 12 months, we collected about 10.3 million or 571 units. So it was about a 12% difference. But it's still coming in. It was just, and a lot of that we talked about was the decrease with what was going on with the economy. We have seen somewhat of a decline, a leveling out for that period. It was consistent with apartments. We had about 3 million collected on the most recent 12 months compared to 4.6 million from 2019 to 2020. So that was about 35% less units on apartments, but that can significantly vary. It only takes 1 month of a big complex coming on with apartments to shift that. But I'll continue to look at that on a 12-month rolling cycle if that's helpful.
I think it is.
And we can certainly send that out as well to the board.
Well, and ironically, just looking at the ones that are multifamily, they're actually townhouses, and it's all Regent Park, new ones that are going in. I can't think of the road name right now, but it's that section. And then the Tiga K ones are all Trinity Towns that are right there on the backside of Serenity Point.
So we may see that change on the next 12-month roll. I did look at on a calendar year basis. So to date, where we are as of close of business yesterday, for calendar year 2021, we've collected about 50% of what we collected in 2020. So we'll see how we track for the remainder of this calendar year compared to 2020. But we've collected about 50% of what we collected in calendar year 2020.
Even though we're 9 months in.
Correct, correct.
Because they can't get supplies.
Right.
Nothing's
I think there's just a lot of factors going into that right now, as we would expect, but it's still coming in. A slower rate, but it's still steadily coming in. Is that helpful information to keep providing? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
It is, and I'm assuming at some point, we know students are also continuing to come in.
Correct.
Right, I mean, and we'd have to compare the curves or the trajectories if they're the same, to see what that means for down the road in terms of, future builds compared to what we expected when we did our 10-year facility plan that I know sometime in the next couple of months we'll look at again.
Shooting for before December.
Yes, yes. I did check, I'm always interested in when the, tax bills are going out. I did check with the county auditor this week, and he said the tax bills are actually on the printer, is what he said, in the process of being printed, and they anticipate they'll be mailed by the end of next week. So we can all, as taxpayers, look forward to that coming in the mail. But I will sort of share and reiterate for the benefit of the public as well that we were successful in meeting our goal to reduce taxes for this year. We had a goal to reduce debt service millage, which is to cover payments, principal and interest payments on our school construction. We had a goal to reduce it by 13 mills, and we met that goal. You met that goal based on your approvals of using different options of funding, and we reduced our debt millage from 85 mills to 72 mills. And just as a reminder for the public, we had anticipated, based on the last referendum, that we could be as high as 129 mills, and we're all the way down to 72. So I think that's a huge success for our community, and we'd like to keep re-emphasizing that, what we've been able to do with our management of these funds and increase in assessed value, refinancing of bonds. It's all come together to benefit the taxpayers. That's the goal. We are continuing to work with York County now that we've been successful in the lawsuit at the Supreme Court level on impact fees. The logistics of these funds, it's extremely complicated, and we're continuing to work with York County on the best way to move these funds around. So we'll continue to work on that. but we're just happy we met the goal this year. And then the last thing I'll mention, the financial audit. I shared with you last month that they completed the procurement audit. The financial audit's underway, and they have been in fieldwork process for about the last 2 weeks, and we're moving ahead as planned. And we will, the goal on that, we have to submit to the State Department by December 1st. So we have no expectation that we won't be ahead of that due date. Okay. That's all I had for this month, unless you have other questions.
No, ma'am. All right.
Okay, thank you.
Our next staff report is from Ms. McGinn, a Cognia accreditation update.
Good evening. In your packet, you had some information about our upcoming Cognia accreditation review. We started talking about this back in 2019-20, and then again in 21 in the board meetings in January. We spent a good bit of time, and then throughout the spring and summer, we've looked at the beginnings of a new 5-year strategic plan, as well as preparing for this Cognia accreditation review. So I just wanted to give you an update. The schools and the district have each looked at 31 standards, accumulated evidence of how we meet each of those 31 standards, and with narratives, short narratives describing how that evidence actually meets the standard. So it's a lot of writing. For the district, we had to do the 31 standards and each of 5 key concepts with each standard, so that was about 155 key concepts to write up and link evidence to. This is just one. It's 47 pages. Domain 2 was like 49 pages, and Domain 3 was just a mere 30 pages. So it's been a lot of work, but it's been an inspiring set of weeks where we've seen the incredible things that are going on in the district that can sometimes get overlooked. You really forget all that goes on in the district and in the schools and in the departments. And when you start really pulling the evidence together, it can be quite overwhelming. The next part, so we have finished that process and sent that information to our lead evaluator and the evaluation team, which is a 5-member team. They're all from South Carolina, some pretty highly regarded folks across the state, and that have had a wealth of experience in education that will actually be looking at our documents and making some decisions about how we meet the standards. Then after the standards review, we do the executive summary. Dr. Epps does an executive summary where we kind of take all that 150 pages and we summarize it, basically describing who we are as a district, our demographics, our students, our faculties, kind of what we look like, what are our strengths, what are our areas of improvement, things that we've learned from this process, and our data analysis of our student data, survey data, all that has to come together in that, and in a presentation for that team that will be virtual. So the visit itself will be a virtual presentation on the first day, so 3 days, November 7th through the 10th. They start actually on the Sunday. We don't actually start to the Monday. And the question you may have is, well, what does that mean for me as a board member? Each of you will need to have a discussion with the team, and it can be one of 2 ways. It can be a phone interview, it could be a Zoom interview, if you'd rather do it by Zoom. I will send you an email and get your availability on the day that if you look at the schedule of events, it does not have to be in the time frame that's there. You will be able to say when it's going to be best for you to meet. And if 2 of you want to do it together in Zoom, that would be fine too. I just need to get your take on that, because it wouldn't be a formal board meeting, so you couldn't do it as collectively as a group without it being a public meeting. But just on the Monday, November 8th, it's tentatively scheduled for 11 to 11:45, but certainly they can't. They'll divide up the team members, and maybe 2 will do each of you, and we'll schedule it somehow that is convenient to you and your schedules. And then you can see how detailed the interview process is.
all of the departments in the district. All principals will be part of an interview group. And then our 6 schools that were selected for the visit will have the students, parents, and faculty members that will all have focus groups for them to learn and kind of validate the evidence that we've supplied and gather more information about the district as they then weigh in on the standards and how we're doing and make recommendations for our continuous improvement journey, because that's what it is. You're never finished. You just keep plugging away, and that's really all I have for you. I wasn't going to do any long presentation. Just wanted you to have a heads up where we are. We'll share the executive summary once it's finished. It's supposed to be sent tomorrow, so I'll share that after Dr. Epps finishes reviewing that and adding some more to it. And then if you're interested in seeing the domains, you certainly are welcome to take a look at those as well. And then I can certainly brief you, Matt Roaring, who presents on assessment and accountability. He is actually on a team right now for Lawrence 55, and so he's learning a lot about the process. It's a different lead evaluator, but he's been sending me little messages, and it's been kind of fun for him to see it from the other side. So I think we'll have some good feedback and can maybe kind of prep you as far as the kinds of questions they'll ask. But you can count on them asking questions from especially the Domain 1 leadership capacity, because there's some specific standards that do refer to the governing board, that's you. The governing authority established adherence to policies, the governing authority adheres to a code of ethics, and then really anything in any of the standards you touch with policies and feedback to the administration. So those are the 2 key policies that you're involved in.
So I would say to board members, only probably Wayne and Scott have been through this process, maybe some of the others that have been on the board. If they have questions, or it might be good to maybe give you a call, or
Sure.
you'll work with them about.
Absolutely. I'll send out an email.
What they need to.
I'll send an email and ask about your availability, and then offer a day or 2 that might be convenient if you want to drop by and see what we've produced, and let's talk through it. We're doing that with principals, and especially the 6 that are going to be, the teams are going to be evaluated. We're meeting again starting next week with our domain chairs to now take this information and couple it with the assessment and survey data to start really building the template for our new strategic plan that's not due until April. And so we've taken the liberty to say we want feedback from this organization to help us inform that plan. Instead of getting in a big hurry and throwing something together, we have our plan that's through 21. It's a plan. They'll see it, and they'll see the draft of where we're, and that's kind of embedded in the documents that we've already produced, of where we're heading with our new plan, and some of those things you've seen as well. So, I think it's a good process for us to get some feedback and actually use what we learn from outside external reviewers.
Ms. McGann, so how do you feel about the journey thus far?
I'm tired. I think I think that we are an incredible school district with incredible people, students, parents, and community members. And when you start pulling together how we engage stakeholders, regardless of what happens on these nights over really 1 or 2 issues, COVID has certainly been interruptive and disturbing in the process. But at the same time, when you start really putting down on paper all the things and ways our community supports our schools, from the foundations to this greenway, just go the businesses that actually, and that's just what we see at the district level, and each school's had that opportunity. So it's work, but I guess it's a labor of love. Because you do leave kind of filled with kind of an awe-inspiring process when you see it all on paper, what we do every day for children.
That's great.
I can attest to Miss McGinn and her team and all of the building level principals. This is a very cumbersome process to go through. And there's a lot of work that's done behind the scenes besides our little hour-long or 30-minute long interview that we're going to get. So, thank you for everybody that's put in the time, the effort, the record keeping, the organizing of meetings. It is a big undertaking. So.
Well, thank you. And I have an incredible team, and having Renee and Matt in the data piece, they have done so much to help the schools, because the schools have been so overwhelmed with the COVID protocols and all that we've tried to take a lot of that off them and help them with their data and uploading things, and they've worked around the clock to help make it as easy as they can for the schools, and the schools have worked incredibly hard as well. But we're trying to do everything we can we want to make sure they see and are engaged in it, but we don't want them overwhelmed. And we actually made a simpler template and had it approved for the schools to use. We're doing the full 150 key concepts, but we held firm that the schools would just do the 31 standards and the best evidence they could find for those 31 instead of going through this level of work. Because it is a district accreditation. And they'll be able to validate what's going on in the schools with the interviews and all of that. So, any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Talking with them. Okay, we do have a couple action items, and the first one is the approval of instructional materials. So we'll start with Dr. Wakesness.
All right, good evening. Peter and I are here to talk about instructional materials. The State Department of just to give you a little background first, the State Department of Education changed the textbook adoption process this year. I think this was due to two main factors, one being the state legislature approving textbooks much later than usual, the amount of funds that they were going to put towards it, and also with COVID still affecting some things as far as getting teachers together in groups across the state. So while we are very excited to be able to adopt a bunch of new books, it did change the way that we typically run the adoption process. So just as a quick reminder, the State Board of Education approves a selection of books for us to choose from. We don't get to just pick whatever textbook we want to pick. The state has a process where they get teachers together and community members, business members together, and they come up with a approved list of textbooks which we choose from. So in prior years, we typically would find out subject areas that would be funded in the late fall, and we would have the remainder of the school year to choose which books we wanted to adopt for our district. This included a textbook caravan, which is an event where teachers get to go and meet with the publishers and ask questions and see the books and try out everything that the publisher is offering. However, there has not been a textbook caravan for the past 2 years. So as soon as we found out which subject areas were funded, we realized that we had about 4 weeks to make the selection, when usually we have about 7 or 8 months total to do this. So like I said earlier, we were very grateful for this, but it was a really compressed timeline. So we, Peter and I with the elementary and me with middle and high school, we set up a process where our teachers still had the opportunity to look at the books, look at the online resources. Almost all the books have online resources now. Often the publishers will send textbook samples right to the schools, but we also ordered copies for the district office and set up times for teachers to come over and look at the materials. But like I said, they're mostly all online now, so we just had to send a link to the teachers to be able to look at that. So once our teachers had the opportunity to review the materials, each school voted on the book they wanted to adopt. In most cases, there was unanimous agreement in this first round. If there was not agreement, we worked with the teachers to come to an agreement so all the schools were using the same book. So I don't know, Peter, if you wanted to add anything different for elementary and how you ran the process.
We only had 3 selections. One of those was the music book, so we had the music teachers all come together. We did a preview, then we came together, had a discussion about it, and came to almost unanimous decision on that. The other was a health book, only 2 choices. So the assistant principal sent some things out to their teachers, had them look at it. Then I brought that group together, went through it, unanimous decision on that selection. And then we only had 1 selection to choose from for art. So there wasn't any discussion on that. So that was pretty simple for element.
And I think since I think since most of the areas were CTE or elective / related arts, there wasn't a whole lot of choice in some of the books. I would say maybe about half of them overall, there was just one choice. But the document that you have in your board packet, you can see the books that our teachers in school selected. Underneath each selection is a short explanation of why we selected that text. There are only 2 core classes on the list this year, the physical science and the modern world history. I think what the state decided was a lot of these courses on there haven't been funded in quite some time, like many, many years. So they're trying to catch up. So we're really excited to be able to get materials for those books. I also heard in our last SCASA meeting in Columbia, well, it was on Zoom, that the state legislature is supposed to put a lot of money into textbooks again for the next 2 years. So we'll see. Take that with a grain of salt, but that's what the word on the streets are. Yes. So do you have any questions on the process or the books for us?
I do. So what's the cadence when it comes to adoption and going through this exercise? I mean, is this a yearly thing? Is this every 6 months? Is this, excuse my stupidity, help me out.
It is, it's different every year. So what typically happens is the state, well, once the General Assembly tells the state how much money they have, how much they're going to give them, well, let me step back. Before that, the State Board of Education and the State Department, really, they come up with a priority list of books they want to fund, 1 through 50 or whatever it is, all the different courses. And then the General Assembly will say, okay, we're going to give you this X millions of dollars. So however many of those books can be funded with that money, that's the priority list.
I see.
So it's really different. Some subject areas maybe once every 5 years, maybe some once every 10 years.
Got it.
So I would say...
Supposed to be 5, but
Interesting.
Right.
it's rare.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think the world history books, I don't even know the last time they were adopted, but it's been well over 5 years.
We've had a war or two.
Gotcha.
Yeah, right?
So,
Thank you
yes.
for that.
So the state's goal is every 5 years, but that doesn't always happen.
In these books, many of them come with an online version when you purchase the books, right?
Yes. I think all of the secondary ones, the elementary also, yes. And some are more than others. Some have a whole suite of resources that are digital resource, and some just have a very basic, you could access the book, so it kind of varies, but they all do have some sort of online access.
And what do we do with the books that these are replacing?
They retire?
Yes.
Okay.
I think sometimes we donate them to,
Less fortunate areas,
yeah,
other countries, I think, from previous conversation maybe.
Right. Well, they're outdated for everybody in the state, so that makes sense.
yeah.
And a lot of the elementary books are now consumable, so they get new ones every year. So when the adoption changes, we don't have old ones.
And usually the cycle is so long, like we were just saying, so the books are in horrible shape once the cycle runs out.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Right? Seriously.
Recycle them. I think York County helps us with all the county schools with recycling.
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the recommendation of the administration to adopt the books listed in our packet this evening, and I'm sure you don't want me to list every single one of those.
No.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt the list of books that are included in our materials this evening. Is there any additional discussion?
No, ma'am.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next action item is the certification of delegates for the South Carolina School Boards Association Delegate Assembly, which is in December. This will be the officers of the South Carolina School Board Association for the coming year, as well as priorities and beliefs that the School Board Association will adopt. And I think you guys have heard us talk about our very own Michelle Branning is the nominee for the Secretary Treasurer, is that right? Yep. Who will be on the ballot. Each school district is given a number of votes based on size. It's my understanding that we have 6 this year. We've had
Yes,
5 in
ma'am.
the past,
Yep.
so we've grown, surprise, surprise. And we now have, we are entitled to 6 delegates. And the way the delegate designation works is that anyone listed can cast up one or up to all 6 votes. So we could have one person, but we can also have up to 6.
Correct.
I believe, as it stands at this moment, we have not registered for the conference because it's not open yet, but I believe there are 6 of us who are generally intending to go, should we be able to send 6. You know, last time we only had 3 spaces available, and I don't think we know for sure how that's gonna work. So it would be my recommendation to go ahead and list all 6 names as delegates. You have to help me on the delegate versus the alternate and exactly where we put what name and what category, but that way everybody has the ability to participate if we're there.
Right.
And then if we only have 3, we've got
So,
enough names.
The way it would typically be is we would want our delegates to be those that we know are attending.
Okay?
So obviously, that's yours truly.
Yes?
And then your alternates would be anyone who may or may not be attending or would only attend in the event that someone was ill and unable to travel.
Okay?
I would tell you, based on what I know from the state level, I don't think that we should send probably more than 2, maybe 3 as actual delegates.
Okay.
Anyone is able to stand in the back of the room and observe what goes on, and or be an alternate, but there is still concern or discussion with regard to limiting the number that will actually be in the delegate assembly. So with that, obviously, I will take that delegate slot because we know I'm gonna be there.
And I would recommend those who have not had the pleasure of being
Right.
a delegate in the past would be,
I lost my job.
would be given that opportunity as well. It's a lovely afternoon sometimes.
It's the best way to spend a Saturday afternoon.
7 or 8 hours.
I know Mr. Bodie has not had that pleasure before. Celia, you have not had that pleasure yet either, have you?
I have. I've served the last 3 years.
You got to
Not
be a
last year.
delegate? thought
Well, I
you
was
were-
her
oh,
alternate,
okay,
and
that's
so
right.
I went
Yeah,
in.
that's
and
not
went with her.
attending. That's not the same.
Yeah.
Dr. Frederoli, have you had
I have never been a delegate, but I am fine with being an alternate. Right? I mean, I would love to be a delegate.
Are you
Don't get me wrong, but
But you're planning to go?
I am planning to go. Yeah.
So, before we get to the official motion, it sounds like we have 3.
Well, and I'm happy to be an alternate because I may have work
Other-
that I have to do. So I have to be there regardless, whether or not I cast our votes,
All right, so
whatever.
I won't put it in the form of a formal motion, but it sounds like maybe Scott and Anthony would be our formal, not it, our formal delegates, and everybody else.
Mr. Brody, you need to speak up if you're
Hey,
done.
I'm here. Team player.
Yeah, if someone would like to make some sort of a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we nominate Mr. Bodie and Dr. Frederoli to be our delegates for the delegate assembly for the SCSBA annual delegate assembly in December, and Ms. McCarter and myself to be our alternates, and
Go ahead, and
you as well.
Myself and Wayne as well.
Okay.
As alternates, just so we're covered depending on
Yep.
whatever happens.
Yep.
All right, so we have can I get a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to nominate Dr. Frederoli and Anthony Bodie for our delegates, myself, Wayne Bolden, Michelle Branning, and Celia McCarter as our alternates for the delegate assembly in December. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion carries.
That was your chance to get out.
That's
Sorry.
right. All right, and the only thing left before executive session is a superintendent's report. Dr. Epps, do you have anything you'd like to share?
Well, just what's on the agenda, the calendar of events is, you see before you are the meetings, the scheduled meetings. A reminder that we could, for whatever reason, cancel or postpone meetings, but we try to have, at least per policy, at least one a month. We've been having 2 lately due to all the business we've had to conduct. Of course, it could be reasons to call special meetings as well, additional meetings. For the month of October, the big break is the Teacher Work Day, the OEC Professional Development Day, no school for students. This is the day when staff development for the areas usually that don't get a lot of staff development, like your music and art. in those singleton areas. Then we go to November, and of course you get into the Thanksgiving holiday. That's everybody's always excited about that. The fall's a fun time with all the sports going on. And then December, you really down to one school board meeting and the half day for students there for exams. And then of course, remember at the end of the year we have a couple of half days. Then the winter break. There may be other dates that I'm not aware of. So board members, are there some other dates that need mentioning?
Yeah, the legislative conference will be that weekend. I'm trying to get a calendar to come up, and it's, not cooperating.
The one we were just talking about,
The one we were just
December 4th.
discussing, that's
The
gonna
weekend of
be,
December 4th.
yeah,
Tuesday,
the
first
3rd, 4th,
weekend.
5th.
Yeah.
And then Thursday is actually Beyond the Basics in Columbia.
You're talking about school board events?
Yes. Yes.
Which, for the public's benefit, these are board members take their own time to, and some of them require training and some are optional, I guess, but so being a school board member is way more than just coming here and sitting here twice a month. I'm sure they can all attest to.
I have it on my calendar. I'm not 100% sure that it is still accurate, but I have a literacy event on October the 28th. It would be a virtual event, but I think
for Rotary.
Yes, for Rotary. So I think at our next meeting, I would like to confirm what that is, because I would certainly want our principals, but anyone from the district that is watching as well to have the details of that, assuming that date is correct. I'm looking to see if I've got anything else that has not been mentioned. That's all I see.
It is the 28th, you're correct.
That's what I thought.
12 to 1.
Yes. Okay, well, we
All right.
probably need some information on
Yep,
that.
yep.
We need to get it to folks.
Yep.
And we may have it. Peter, where's Peter? See,
Do you know anything about
Are you
that?
aware of anything on the,
Okay.
so we probably.
Now you are.
Probably need for Peter to know that.
The 28th of October.
And I don't have any additional information other than a placeholder on the calendar, so we'll see what we can find out.
I forwarded the Rotary email to you so you could see that. Right, that's evidence. That's right.
As far as attendance, Ms. Spears commented a while ago on the kids keep moving in. That's certainly accurate. Or are there other calendar dates I skipped out? Anybody else on calendar?
Nope.
We see this slow trickle of students each month, like you grown accustomed to, grew by 16, but the bulk of the growth obviously occurs in the summer, but it's cumulative, as you know. So yes, the students keep coming in. You mentioned the 10-year plan. We do plan to present the facilities plan to the board probably at the December meeting, and then we'll have discussions about needs going forward at that point. But that's so there's the gradual growth. We're up to 17,855, still number one in the county, I'm sure. Unless Rock Hill grew by 500 since last month.
And not.
Also, we go to the attendance winners, and we start out with September 21, Nation Forward with an attendance rate of 94.5. Pleasant Knoll on the middle school level, attendance rate of 95.7. And then the elementary winner and the overall winner, TUK Elementary, with 97.6. So, they're coming to work.
Yep, it's awesome.
At a high rate. That's all I have. Questions?
All right, well, we are in need of an executive session to receive personnel recommendations to discuss a legal issue and to consider a parent disciplinary appeal. So I would entertain a motion for executive session.
Motion to go into executive session?
In a second.
Second.
All right, we are in executive session. Thank you all for your attendance.